Wow. So we live in interesting times. A lot of things have happened that we would have never expected unless we were in the pandemic field. I was not, so I did not expect it. But you have to say that a very remarkable thing has happened. And if you look at the bright side of it, and we'll get to the dark side of it too, the bright side is that in a matter of a couple of months, COVID, whether it's real or not, because obviously they're two very different stories on it, has managed to put the entire world on hold to give the human race a timeout. And in that timeout, where we can't go outside, or it's recommended we don't go outside, then and stay home and quarantine and lockdown, it's freed time for us to do the things that we've always said we wanted to do, but claim we never had time for. And it's put us in a position where, since we can't go outside, maybe we can spend some time going inside and to discovering more of what occupies the space that our body occupies. Because in that is a huge amount of treasure that most of the time we are too busy doing to actually pay attention to. And that's probably the biggest human flaw. We haven't been doing it very well for 200,000 years. It's time for a reset. We have pressure now in terms of environment and sustainability. We have pressure in terms of politics and how it's not working. We have pressure in terms of relationships, whether they're business or personal or whatever relationships, family, not working that well in a lot of cases. We have pressure in terms of health, because that's not working either, because cardiovascular disease, cancer, doctor-caused disease, and I think probably COVID is number 4 at this point, although it depends on who you ask. There are a lot of different opinions on that. And we need to change some things that we've gotten away with for a long time, but that are now coming back to bite us in the butt. And so the reason why I'm doing this is I was primed not for COVID, but for crazy situations. I'll tell you why. I was born during the Second World War. I was in Poland, which was then part of Germany. And before I was 3, we were refugees, and we were fleeing west from Poland into Germany with the communists chasing us in tanks and trucks. And on the roads on which we traveled, there were no soldiers, just women with young children in horse-drawn hay wagons, trying to get the hell out of that place from the communists. And the good guys, the allies, were using the refugees as target practice. They were shooting at us from planes. And it was a pretty hectic time. So, right now we got COVID, but we ain't got the guns, and we haven't got that carnage yet. And I don't remember a lot of it, but I remember the anxiety, the fear, the confusion, didn't feel safe, wasn't anything that I could depend on, that I could identify. My mother had to leave me behind. That's a whole other long story for another time. And we ended up getting separated. Then eventually we got back together with help from strangers and friends. And I was a very shy kid because I never felt safe. And I read a lot of books because books were safe. Nothing jumps out of you at books and chases you in tanks and trucks. And, in your head, a war is very different from a war behind your butt. And so when I was 6 years old, I I was in Germany and listened to adults argue about things that I thought were really trivial. And it occurred to me, man, there must be a way that people can live in harmony. And I'm going to find out how. Now, obviously, as a 6-year-old, you don't know how complicated everything is. So I just was committed to finding out how. And that's been my driver all my life. How can human beings live in harmony? So I was reading, and I was always trying things out to find out how things work. I was kind of a mad scientist as a little kid, broke a lot of stuff. And, what is, just always checking how things work. And when it came to studying after high school, I decided to go into sciences in order to learn how things work. Thought that was important. Then I went into biological sciences to understand how creature works. Then I went into psychology to find out how thinking works. And eventually I got into self-knowledge because I needed to know how I work. And out of that came first a teachable field of fats in nutrition and their effect on health. And then I decided I wanted to turn health into a teachable field, as well as human nature into a teachable field. Because most of what's wrong on the planet, we caused. And if you ask yourself, why are we causing this? You get a lot of answers. Well, it's greed, and well, it's power, well, it's status, well, it's whatever. So we say it's that, but actually it goes a little bit deeper. It comes from our disconnection from ourselves. It comes from changing our focus from inside present and outside absent to outside present and inside absent. And let me talk about that a little bit. When we were in our mother's womb, I call it the Buddha tank. In that place, everything was taken care of. There was no place to go. There was nothing to do. And it was relatively safe. And when we were in that place, our awareness was focused in its source, inside, in life. So we were present inside, but absent outside, because we had no idea about what the world we were going to enter at some point. And that would be called the Buddha state, or the enlightened state, because we lived in the light of our own life inside our little floating body in the tank. And when people talk about becoming enlightened or finding peace or searching for truth, the state that they're looking for is that state. So we've already been in that state. So then we got born, and basically all hell broke loose. So then we had to figure out, we started by crying whenever we were hungry or uncomfortable or needed a diaper change or were tired. And slowly we learned to recognize people and things, and who is helpful to us and who's dangerous to us. And we learned language, and we became good at articulating what we need. And we got trained to live in a culture, whatever culture we grew up in. And so, and in that process, our awareness was drawn out into the world through our senses to change. Anytime something changes, your senses are attracted to it. Your awareness is attracted to it, because you have to figure out, is this friend, or is this foe, or is this irrelevant? And you have to make that assessment very quickly, because if it's foe, you got to run like hell. If it's friend, then maybe you'll sidle up to it. And it's irrelevant, then you can focus on something else. And we have to do that all the time, because every time something changes, like light flashes, you're immediately attracted. You hear a sound from silence, immediately attracted. What's that? Oh, what's that? Oh, what's that? And then you hear something that you don't know what it is, and it's just like, oh, what is that? What is that? I got to know what that is. And that's about survival. That that mechanism for survival was designed by life and going out into the world through our senses is automatic because it's so important for survival. But in that process, we ended up present in our awareness outside and absent inside. In other words, we disconnected from our own being. And out of that disconnection came a discontent. And that discontent became our driving force. Everything with you, you know, whether you feel uneasy or you feel empty, or you got the blues, or you're lonely, or you have a longing, a yearning, or something, you know, somebody betrays you, disappointment, or your grandmother dies, sorrow, sadness, grieving. You know, these are all words for a feeling that we feel in our chest whenever something gets lost, whenever we lose something. Dog runs away. I mean, you know, relationship breaks up, somebody dumps us. So, and we have different words for that feeling in our chest. Same feeling, same place in our chest, but depending on the context within which that feeling gets triggered, we have different words for it. I have 10 pages of different words that people use. Sometimes can't breathe, restricted, separated, isolated, so many words for one feeling. And what's interesting is we know what to do when we're hungry. Hunger is our impulse to eat. Thirst is the feeling to drink. If your bladder's full, you know you go to the bathroom. If you're tired, you go to sleep. So we know how to do those interactive things. And we do them by feeling. But when it comes to this feeling, we don't actually know what it is. We think it's about grandma. We think it's about the dog. We think it's about the betrayal. It's not. What that is every time some substitute for our own wholeness ends, we're back to our loss of our connection to ourselves. Some people call it heartache, thirst of the heart. I like that, thirst of the heart to feel whole. And I started feeling that when I was 17, and I couldn't shake it. And when I was 30, I met somebody who said, the peace, you know, I was always looking for peace because I came out of the war. And so he said, the peace you search for in the world is actually within you. And I could show you how to connect to that. And I didn't think he could, and, you know, I was pretty suspicious, and, you know, but then I thought, well, I am really interested in peace, and let's see if he can. If he can, I'll pursue it. And if he can't, then I'll just keep looking. And that was about 48 years ago. I'm 78, so that was like 48 years ago. I was 30 at the time. And he taught me a practice of bringing my awareness back home inside to its source, kind of like where we were when we were in our mother's womb. And so I've been practicing that for 48 years. And because I have this drive that everybody could live in harmony together, and everybody could be fulfilled, and 8 billion people could live their lives lit up from within, because the light's already there. It's just a matter of looking into it instead of looking away from it. We mostly look away from it. When we do that, we will feel so cared for, because life loves our body unconditionally, 24/7, 365. And I didn't think about that, start thinking about that one until I was 27. And it loves us unconditionally. And when we connect to that, we feel taken care of. We don't need more. We won't steal other people's stuff, because we think if we had more stuff, we'd be more happy. It's not true. And when we stop stealing each other's stuff, we can live in harmony. And when we live in harmony, it is not hard to figure out how to make sure that every basic need of every person on this planet is met in a long-term sustainable basis. What keeps us from doing that, because we're wired for it. Inside, we're wired from it. What keeps us from doing it, why people who have a lot to give. Hang on to it. Why is that? In my view, it's because they're afraid that if they gave away what they don't even need, they would be even more discontent. And you know, the people who have a lot are not more content than the people who have less. In fact, the research says they're less generous, and and they're less kind, and they're less empathetic. You know, these are not happy people. Even though if you think money would make you happy, or goods would make you happy, or stuff would make you happy, you'd think they should be the happiest people in the world. They don't. They don't. You know, there are many examples of people who had everything and didn't have enough to not destroy their own bodies. And the examples abound. So in the process of doing the practice and getting reconnected to that, I designed a picture of nature and human nature. And it's in the form of the bullseye. And I'll go through that with you briefly. And that bullseye is human beings in their surroundings. That's what this bullseye is. And I'll go through the numbers. Starting from the center, the deepest foundation in a human being is internal awareness. Now, awareness is like a container, except it has no surface. It's within which, formless, timeless, within which everything else unfolds. Some people call it the witness. The physicists call it the field. And the people who've had religious or spiritual experiences would call that the spark of God in you. Now that place is where your peace is found. Real peace, biological roots, not a matter of negotiations or ceasefires. Real peace that feels peaceful. I can sit in my room, and as soon as I turn off the television, I can sit in my room and I say, oh my God, there is so much peace here, everywhere. When I feel that peace, I realize peace has always been everywhere, everywhere, including on the battlefield. The problem is, on the battlefield, the people who are fighting are not connected to their peace. And so they don't see the peace everywhere. Only peace sees peace everywhere. They're in their head saying, you're my enemy, I'm going to kill you. And the other side says, you're my enemy, I'm going to kill you. And then they play that out instead of sitting down, getting quiet, going into that place, in which case the war would end and they would share sandwiches or something, right? Drink tea together. So that's the deepest part. The next part out is called life energy. What is life energy? Well, the energy comes from the sun. It's grabbed by green leaves. It's turned into molecules, and the energy is stored in the bonds. You eat the molecules. That energy is released, and that's the sunlight energy that you live on. That energy is your personal essence, your individual essence. It is power, it is light, it is sound. You can hear it inside. If you know how to bring your awareness inside, you can feel it and you can even taste it. And that power is who you are. We think we're the body. You know, I do this all the time. I say to somebody, okay, I point at you and I say, whose body is that? And usually people will say, if they don't have a whole spiritual fancy explanation for it, they'll say, well, it's my body. So if you say, this is my body, you have just told me that you are not the body. You are the owner of the body. So who are you as the owner of the body? Well, some people say to me, oh, well, I'm Udo. No. Your name is a label that somebody stuck on you so they could tell you apart from other people and they could call you to get your attention. But you're not your name and you're not your body. Well, some people think we're our belief system. That's also not true. What you are is the life energy. What is that life energy? It is the master living within you. It weighs nothing. It runs everything. That energy is omnipresent, so everywhere present in your body. all power in your body, omnipotent, and knows everything about your body, which means all-knowing in your body. It's the divine in you. It's what the master spoke about. It's what the master spoke from and spoke into. And it's within every human being. It was there at your conception. It was there through all your dramas and traumas. It is still there, and it will always be there, indestructible. Like awareness, life energy is indestructible. You can't stress it. It can't get sick. And when you tap into that, you end up feeling unconditional love, because life is unconditional love for your body. That's cool to have if you can access it, especially when things on the outside get turbulent. Then it's very nice to have a place inside that is not affected. In fact, life energy and awareness, even if my body was wrecked and on its way out, and my thoughts were completely disorganized, and my social group was completely dysfunctional, and my environment was a disaster area, life energy and awareness would still be completely unaffected by that. How cool is that? Because we can go there and we completely can rebuild everything to a better standard, starting from that depth. And the pressure we have these days is go deep into that, because from that we end up in a different state of being. And your state of being, it creates your perception. Let me give you an example. If I feel the peace that fills my body and the universe around me, I can be everywhere. I can be somewhere and I can say, oh my God, there's so much peace everywhere. So I will see the peace. I will recognize the peace because I'm looking for peace. Somebody could stand beside me who's angry and he would see enemies everywhere. And somebody else could be standing next to him and be fearful and he would see danger everywhere. So your state of being defines how you see the world. And your state of being also creates the world, because out of fear, you will build a very different world than you would out of peace. And in fact, we have built a world out of fear and anger, and we have never done the homework we need to do to get to the peace that is our core, to build a world that is a reflection of that peace. So life energy, weighs nothing, runs everything. Then the third is called inspiration or inspired creativity. That's kind of the shine of life. It's the bridge between life and the world. Out of that comes design and creativity and genius and also will and also intention. And this is where our inventions come from, and our uniqueness is, actually the uniqueness is picked up through our body mostly. But this is how the impulse of peace and love come to expression. And generally when people are really inspired, they try to make things that make people's lives better. So that's inspired creativity. That's part of the positive, the light part of mind. And then the fourth one is the physical body. Physical body is really 4 big issues. Food, water, and air is one. Fitness through stretching and weight and cardio and something called counter strain. So food and fitness, the body is made from food but for activity. And then digestion is a huge issue in physical health, because everything in your body had to be first put in your stomach, digested, broken apart, absorbed, and put back together to make your eyeballs, to make your teeth, to make your ears, to make your bones, your cartilage, your skin, everything. Hair, everything. And then digestion is number 3. And then number 4 is avoiding poisons and detoxing. Detox through the skin by sweat, through the bowel, through the kidneys, through the breath for volatile molecules, and And the liver is a detoxifying organ, so it takes toxins from the body and turns them into less toxic, and then dumps them into the bowel, and they head out to the toilet. So that's number 4. Number 5 is what I call survival smarts. That's your bridge between you and the world. And that depends, number 1, on feeling powerful, which comes from inside, or feeling confident. And the second is skills, to learn the skills you need in crisis. It's about protection, it's about procreation, and it's about safety. And it's for survival, even though you know that in the end, you're not going to survive. Your body will not survive. Something will survive. Who you really are will survive. Life energy will survive. The body will be recycled. We know that, it actually makes sense to acknowledge that and to learn to come to terms with that fact, without being stupid about it. So that's survival smarts. And then number 6 is social group. Social group affects your health. Who you hang out with affects your health. And sometimes people, when people get serious degenerative conditions and they end a relationship and get free of the pressure that they have in that relationship, and they recover miraculously. So and we were kids, when we were kids in the schoolyard, we used to say to each other, if somebody ticked us off, we would say, "You made me sick." And so we knew, even as kids, that other people affect our health. So that's number 6. Number 7 is the natural environment. Natural environment is where all our resources come from, but they are limited resources. And we need, I think, the appropriate relationship with nature is, number 1, grateful, because we get everything for free from nature. And number 2, respect, because nature is also very powerful and very dangerous. And to live in line with nature, and especially in terms of what we eat and how we move and how we breathe and what we drink, that in line with nature before industry. That's why we have filters and gadgets to filter air and water. And that's why we try to eat organic. And that's why fresh, whole, raw makes sense from a health perspective. So nature is the bigger body. And fundamentally, the appropriate thing is, and we know that because recycle, what is it? Reduce, reuse, recycle, because the resources are limited, and we have been very successful, and there's a lot of us not taking more than we need, not just killing things for the fun of it, but, eating what we kill, because we do need to kill something to eat. That would be number 7. And then number 8 is the big picture. I call that infinite awareness. Infinite awareness is an extension of internal awareness. So the middle circle, and infinite awareness, they are the same thing, except infinite awareness is the outward extension from internal awareness. When you get to the place of your internal awareness, where your peace is, if you sit in that peace and you allow your awareness to extend out in all directions, you discover there is no end to the peace that you are the center for. And some people have defined it as a center without a surface. A center without a surface. There's no inside, no outside. You go inside the body to get to it, but the awareness itself has no dimensions, no inside, no outside, and extends out to infinity. So those are the 8. Now, why do I separate them like that? Well, very simply, each one of those 8 has a different nature, has a different function, needs a different kind of attention, needs attention on a regular basis, goes off in a different way, and responds to a different kind of intervention. And if you want to live the best possible life, so we're not talking about getting by or doing the minimum, or what can we get away with? We're talking about, why don't we make the most of this gift of life that we have? In order to do that, we have to give each one of those 8 parts its due. And I have an overview book. I call it the Book on Total Sexy Health, the 8 key parts designed by nature. These are the 8 parts. That's an overview. I mean, you could write a book, obviously, more than one book on each one of these different aspects. Why sexy health? Well, sexy is the power word on this planet. And when we talk about sexy, we're not talking about having sex. We're talking about energized, full-on, present, rocking. We have lots of words for it. And we talk about sexy technology and sexy architecture and sexy lines in art. And so sexy has something that gets your attention, something that is really attractive. And each one of those 8 parts confers a part of sexy to you, if you're living in line with that part. If you get out of line with that part, you lose the part it confers to sexy. And if you get back in line with it, you get that part of sexy back. So that's the model. Fundamentally, fundamentally, each one of them needs to get attention in order for you to be full. What is the goal? The best life is if you're fully present in all of your nature and your surroundings at the same time. You don't just go inside and outside, but you actually go inside, stay there, and drag it out into the world with you. Fully present in all of your being, in all of your nature and your surroundings, and not lost in thoughts and ideas and beliefs and untested assumptions in your head. And when you live fully present in all of your being and your surroundings, then you literally can bring everything you are into the surroundings. And what is the basis of it? On the foundation, your greatest power is peace and love and deep joy and contentment and fulfillment. And you feel rich and you feel whole and you feel amazing and you feel magnificent, and you don't drag about it. You become grateful for it. So for everything that ails us, everything that is not working in our life comes from something out of line in one of those 8 territories. And what we do then is we identify what the issue is, and then we identify what happens when you get back in line with it, what the goal is. And between what's wrong and what's possible is the direction of your journey in each one of those 8 areas. That's and if you're living fully present in all of your being and your surroundings, responding to what goes on is not complicated. You don't get anxious because you feel peace. Or if you're anxious, you feel peace too. And then you can pick, which one do I like better? And frankly, between knowing anxiety, I know anxiety very well. And peace is always more interesting, more beautiful, more powerful, and more stabilizing, and more is preferable. So if you look at where the problems come from, they don't come from number 1, they don't come from number 2, they don't come from number 3. Problems start in your body. All your diseases start on the level of interactions between molecules. And then your survival mind, because that's not stable, that things are always changing. So body's always changing. Survival mind is always changing, or what it responds to is always changing. The people are always changing. Groups are always changing. The environment is always changing. So this is when we're aware of body, survival mind, other people, and nature. Those all change. But number 1, 2, and 3, internal awareness, life energy, inspiration, and number 8, big picture, infinite universe, those don't change. What if we live aware of all of them? So you can have peace and anxiety at the same time. But you can focus on the anxiety, but you can also focus on the peace. And you can decide which one you want to focus on. And so literally, when I'm anxious or something triggers me, I know that I can go to a place in peace. I will deal with it better when I do. And, you know, in uncertain times where there's a lot of change, we get overwhelmed. You know, processing change is about this. When you get out of line, you become a victim of the changes, maybe. When you get back in line, the power in you is always greater than the challenges you face. And to be able to now, this obviously takes some practice. The area where we're most missing it, what we're missing most is our presence in the core of our being, in our life energy, and in our inspiration. But they're there, they're built in. We are wired with them. They have always been there. They are there now, and they will always be there. That's the happy message. You know, when I came out of my war, it ended when I was 3. I was still bitching about the war when I was 27. And one day I was sitting on a porch in the sunshine, and I realized, oh my God, through all my dramas and all my traumas and all of those crazy circumstances, and my mother leaving me behind, and my father and I not getting along, and all of those things that were like the tragic life, there was something inside of me that took perfect care of me through all of that stuff. And I've never given that any attention. Seems like it's a really good friend. Maybe I should get to know it. And that was the beginning for me of the turnaround, to go from all of my dramas and my traumas to getting to a place where literally I can live in the peace. I can leave most of the stresses outside. I can deal with what I need to deal with and have the most amazing life. Because there's always something, you know. Next thing, you know, we talk about all this and I'm in a really good place. You know, next thing I know, I'm either hungry or I got to pee, or somebody knocks on the door, or the phone rings, or I got to deal with something. But to be able to deal with the things that come at me from a place of the power of peace, love, and deep joy, that is a cool place to be able to be living from. So this is what the rest of my time on earth, I will be spending talking to people, laying out this model, you could call it, you know, but helping them in practice get in touch with those parts that have been neglected, that are therefore their sexiness has gone away. You know, when you're depressed, it's not too sexy. Anxiety is not that sexy. PTSD is not that sexy, right? But there's something that has never been affected by any of those issues that come from changes in the environment, in the social group, in the survival mind, and in the body. And so you can live in the temporary body in an infinite universe and be okay, completely okay, and live in acceptance of that. So I think I'm just about done my time here. I hope this has been helpful to you. And I look forward to many, many more presentations like this, but also to helping people do that. If you want more information, there's a couple of places to go. One is theudo.com, theudo.com. And the other one is udoschoice.com, UDOS choice. And I work with oils that are made with health in mind, long story, but that's for another day. And also with digestive enzymes and probiotics and some other products. And you can read about them and see if any of that can be helpful to you. So thank you for listening. And I'm done.
Yeah, thanks, Udo.
Thank you.
I've been here the whole time.
Yeah.